Okay, so everyone's talking about vegan and cruelty-free beauty these days, right?
Yeah, it's a huge trend.
But there's this Swedish hair care brand that's seriously making waves. Like, they're not just riding the wave. They're like the wave, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
for sure. For sure. They're definitely leading the pack.
And they've been crushing it, especially with their recent move into the UK and US
Oh,
markets.
global domination.
Exactly, and we've got their case study here.
Oh, cool.
And let me tell you, it is a fascinating deep dive into how they did it.
I bet.
So, like, what can we learn from this,
Right?
about making it big internationally?
Yeah, especially in such a competitive market like beauty.
Huge market.
So many brands.
And then there's the talent side of things, too. Like, what kind of team does it take to pull off something this ambitious?
Right. Because it's one thing to have a great product, but you got to have the right people to get it out there.
Absolutely. And, just to add a little fun to the mix, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the hiring process, too.
Oh, yeah. Like, what's it actually like to be a candidate in one of these high-stakes situations?
Pressure's on.
Totally. So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay. So right off the bat, this case study highlights just how ambitious this whole project was.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they needed to hire not one, but two senior country managers, like the heads of those entire regions.
Huge roles.
Huge roles. And get this, they only had 12 weeks to do it.
Oh, my gosh. It's like a pressure cooker.
Oh, absolutely. Talk about a tight timeline.
And for one role, that's already a lot, but for two.
I know, it's wild.
So what were they looking for in these ideal candidates? I mean, what kind of person can handle all that?
So it wasn't just about finding someone with like a generic management background.
Okay, so experience wasn't enough.
No. They wanted people who were deeply rooted in the salon industry. Like they had to really understand that world.
So salon experience was a must-have.
Must have. And then on top of that, they had to be proven strategic leaders. Like they needed to see evidence of that.
Okay, so they had to be able to think big picture and make things happen.
Exactly. But here's the thing. It wasn't just about skills.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah. This company, they were super focused on cultural fit, like finding people who truly aligned with their brand values.
So it's like finding someone who not only has the chops, but also gets the company's vibe.
Exactly. Like they have to believe in what the brand stands for, especially when it comes to sustainability.
Right, because this brand is all about that vegan cruelty-free thing.
They're very serious about it. It's at the core of everything they do.
So how do you even begin to define that? Like, how do you measure cultural fit? It seems kind of like
Yeah, a little bit intangible.
Yeah, exactly.
So for this company, cultural fit meant a few key things. Passion for sustainability was a big one.
Makes sense given their whole ethos.
Right. And then they also wanted someone who really understood their target customer, which is salon professionals.
Someone who can speak their language, basically.
Exactly. And then lastly, they were looking for a collaborative leadership style, someone who could not only lead, but also inspire.
So not a dictator?
No team player all the way. And they made sure to factor cultural fit into every step of the hiring process, from the initial screening to the final interviews.
Smart, because you don't want to waste time on people who aren't a good fit.
Exactly. So let's talk about that hiring process, because the numbers in this case study are seriously impressive.
Yeah, they're mind-blowing. Over 1,000 applicants, 40 interviews. Like, how do you even
I know, it's great.
wrap your head around that?
Right. So they started with 1,038 applications, to be exact.
Wow.
And the first step was this rigorous screening process where they basically filtered for the must-haves, basic qualifications, experience level.
So weeding out anyone who didn't meet the minimum requirement.
Exactly. And they also did a preliminary check for brand alignment. Like,
Yeah.
did the candidates' values seem to match up with the company's, at least on paper?
Okay, that makes sense. But still, I imagine that left them with a pretty sizable pool of candidates.
It did, but it was definitely more manageable than 1,000.
So how do they go from there?
So I'm curious, did all of these candidates come through the usual channels like job boards and online applications?
Yeah, that's a good question because, let's be real, not every superstar is actively looking for a new gig.
Totally. And the company knew that they were really smart about it. They actually went beyond just posting the job and hoping for the best.
Oh, interesting. So what did they do?
They tapped into their industry networks, did some targeted headhunting, and basically went out and found the people they thought would be the perfect fit, even if those folks weren't actively searching for a new job.
Wow, that's impressive. So they were proactive.
Oh, yeah, they were playing chess, not checkers.
They knew what they wanted and they went out and got it.
Exactly. They were very strategic.
But even with a short list, I bet those interviews were pretty intense.
Oh, intense is an understatement.
I can imagine.
They put the candidates through multiple rounds. They had competency-based interviews to assess skills and experience.
Okay, so really digging into their past performance.
Yes. And then they also did scenario planning exercises to see how candidates think on their feet. You know, how they handle pressure.
Oh, that's a good one. Because in those senior roles, you got to be able to make decisions quickly.
Absolutely. And then, of course, they had in-depth discussions about the brand's vision and values.
So making sure there was that deeper alignment beyond just the skills and experience.
Exactly. They wanted to get a sense of how each person would operate under pressure and how they would contribute to the company culture.
So it sounds like a pretty thorough process.
Oh, extremely thorough. And they managed to do all of this and find 2 amazing candidates in just 12 weeks.
I'm seriously impressed.
Me too. And these weren't just any 2 people. The case study highlights their impressive track records. Like, one of them had spearheaded a major sustainability initiative at their previous company.
So they were already walking the walk.
Exactly. They were already living those values. It was a perfect match.
So big picture, what are the takeaways here? Is this a blueprint for successful international expansion?
I think it's definitely a masterclass in strategic hiring.
For sure, they had a plan and they executed it flawlessly.
They had a crystal clear vision of who they needed, and they built a process that was rigorous, but also allowed them to really understand each candidate.
And they didn't compromise on their values.
Not at all. In fact, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways, aligning your team with your core values. Like, sustainability in this case can be a powerful differentiator, especially in a market as crowded as beauty.
Absolutely. And, I think there's a lesson here for anyone trying to land their dream job too.
Oh, for sure.
Like if you were up against 1,000 other applicants,
Yeah.
what would make you stand out? What's your secret weapon?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Because it's not just about skills anymore. It's about demonstrating that passion, that alignment with the company's mission. And it might sound cliche, but being authentically yourself can go a long way in a process like this.
I think that's great advice.
I hope so.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive.
It has been fascinating to break it all down.
There's much to learn from this company's success.
Absolutely. They've really set a high bar.
They have. And I think that question you posed, what's your secret weapon? That's something for everyone listening to ponder.
Yeah, because in today's world, you got to find a way to stand out from the crowd.
And sometimes the best way to do that is just to be yourself.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining me.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Until next time.
See ya!